You've probably heard about something called regenerative agriculture. But what is it? At its core, regenerative agriculture is outcome-based. The land you're working with gets better over time. If you're like me, you've probably had the conception that farming the land automatically depletes it over time. And while usually that's the case, it doesn't have to be. There are farmers working their lands today who are making their farm and the land better over time. So in today's video, I'm going to cover 6 principles that qualify farming as regenerative. And it's important to note that these are principles, not practices. Principles apply everywhere on the planet. Practices are context specific. And special shout out to the crew at Kiss the Ground, where I first learned these from. Number 1, cause the least disturbance to the soil. Soil is something that's alive. There are more organisms in a tablespoon of healthy soil than there are people on the earth. When soil is disturbed by tilling, for example, it kills most of the biology in the soil. So regenerative farmers have tools like no-till seed drills that allow them to farm while maintaining the life in the soil. Number 2, keep living roots in the ground. You see, roots and the aforementioned living biology that's in the soil are like best friends. They're like kids who grew up on the same street together and rode bikes and played video games every day. And then one day, one of their dad gets a job in another town and the family's got to move, and then little Bobby has nobody to shoot bottle rockets into the lake with. Roots need the biology in the soil to provide them nutrients. And the biology in the soil needs roots to help it thrive. Number 3, maintain soil armor. I know you've driven past a field in a rural area and just seen miles upon miles of tilled bare land. That's how a lot of farmers do it, but that's not how nature does it. When do you see bare soil in nature? Hardly ever, because weeds sprout out. That's nature's way of protecting the soil. Plants and soil armor protect the soil from the rain, from compacting it, and they protect it from the sun, from baking it. So regenerative farmers use practices like cover crops and using plant litter on the ground to use soil armor. Number 4, animal integration. Somehow in the development of agriculture, we've come to the idea that it's good for some people to deal with just animals and some people to deal with just plants. Well, that's basically hogwash when it comes to natural systems. You see, regenerative farms have animal integration into the farm in one way or another. Why truckload in loads and tons of fertilizer when you can get it from the animals right there on your farm? And special note, birds, bees, and other insects should also be considered when it comes to integration. Number 5, increasing biodiversity. Do you remember the movie Field of Dreams, where Kevin Costner is walking through his rows and rows of cornfields and he hears the voice, "If you build it, he will come." Maybe the voice could have said, "If you practice crop diversity, your farm will be more regenerative." Yeah, that would have been terrible screenwriting. I don't recommend it, but I think you get the point. Monocropping is not a good idea. It makes natural systems more brittle, more susceptible to pests. However, using crop rotation and including biodiversity on the farm makes natural systems more resilient. And finally, number 6, context. What does this mean? This has to do with your land, your farm, your garden, and what works and is appropriate for you. You can't just export a regenerative practice and expect it to work somewhere else. What works for one farmer may not work for another. There's going to be diversity and nuance to every situation, which is kind of how nature does it. See you next time.